Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Who are we really? Fundamentally, all of us on some level are living a double life. Sometimes we're uber spiritual, we're really connected, we're identified with our Judaism, and other times we live a life that would seem to be contrary to that existence. And I'm asking this question because in this week's parsha, none other than Moshe Rabbeinu faces this same problem and this same conflict. Moshe is raised as a prince of Egypt. He's got this privileged kind of status because the daughter of Pharaoh found him in the Nile. He was raised in the palace of the king. On the other hand, he knew he was a Jew. And the Torah tells us he goes out and he sees his brothers being whipped in the fields of Egypt, being oppressed as slaves in ancient Egypt. And he's living both of these lives. He's a Jew and his brothers are slaves, and yet he's raised as a son of Pharaoh. Now, like all conflict situations, there's always a moment that forces us to choose. And that moment came when Moshe saw a fellow Jew being beaten by an Egyptian. And it became clear to him that if he didn't step in, if he didn't intervene, this Jew would be killed. But if he does step in, he is now risking his status as a privileged prince of Egypt. And the Torah tells us, Vayifen kol v'cho, he looks one way, he looks the other way. Vayar ki ein ish, and he sees there's no one there. Vayachat mitzri, and he smites the Egyptian, vayitmenenu b'chol, and he buries him in the sand. And some of the rabbis explain, it's not just that he was looking to see if the coast was clear. He looks one way, he looks the other. What he was really looking at was himself. He looks inside of him. And vayifen kol v'cho, he looks one way at the Egyptian part of him, raised as a privileged prince of Egypt, and he looks at the other side, the Jew with him. Vayar ki ein ish, and he realizes there's nobody. Because he's on the fence, because he's not identifying with either being an Egyptian or Jew, and he's trying to live both of these lives, he realizes he's no one. And therefore, vayachat mitzri, he kills the Egyptian within him, buries him in the sand, and from that very moment, Moshe goes on to do the greatest things for the Jewish people and ultimately for the world. You know what's fascinating? The gematria, the numerical equivalent of Ha-Mitzri, the Egyptian, is the same as Moshe, as Moses. Because once he realizes that he's living this Egyptian life and he's able to remove that, then he can be the true Moshe that he was meant to be. My bracha to you and to all of us, and I speak to myself always as I speak to you, is that those conflict situations are good situations because they push us to decide who we truly are. And when we identify with the deepest part of who we are, ultimately there's nothing that can stand in the way of what we can accomplish in this world. Shabbat Shalom.